2, and we're off in 3, 2. All right. Good morning and welcome to the show. This is the Weekly Jargon, and I am Jose Rodriguez.
Rohi Zachariah.
And today, Rohi, we have a pretty interesting episode, right? And that's the rise of youth protesting. And before we get started, we'd like to welcome your comments. If you're looking at the Weekly Jargon for the first time, feel free to stay tuned and make comments. We appreciate all those comments, questions that you may have that we can answer here live on the show. But with that, Rohi, our topic, what are you seeing?
Well, you know what? It came out a couple days ago about the protests, and I know there's protests going. It seems like nonstop now in the country for a couple of years now, but it's getting local now, and the youth are going to start. I don't know what, marching, rising, burning buildings. We'll see on Friday. So,
but when you say what do you mean by youth? I mean, who exactly? I mean, do we have any information?
So what's come out is a flyer. It looks like organizing the 3 high schools in town for hopefully a peaceful protest on Friday at 8:30, meeting at Lionstown and Country Park. And, it's, talking to some people, their kids are already asking to be involved. And, and I think it's something that shows that the youth nowadays want to be engaged. They want to have a voice. Hopefully they want to do this for the right reasons, but it's definitely something that you're seeing, I guess getting more and more popular is the better way to say it. So, the stats are showing it looks like, 1 in 5 youth are kind of getting actively involved in some kind of protest, and is it good or bad? I mean, that's what we're here to discuss, right? I mean, but it's definitely increasing.
Yeah, and when you said 1 in 5, it begs to ask the question, what is it in society that creates the civil unrest for youth to want to come out? But if we go back to history and we look during the civil rights movement, you had a lot of folks, and especially in college campuses, really being part of movements back then, whether it was the black students, the Hispanic, Latino students, and or any other students, even white students for that matter, during the Vietnam War. There was many students of all colors and races really coming together, or in this case, fighting different causes, but protesting because there was some civil unrest at that time.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've seen a rise like that up until recently, because we're not just seeing it here in the States, we're also seeing it globally. You're starting to see a lot of rise. So there's something certainly that's going out there. Obviously, it's a restructure maybe of government or the way we do things, and I think people are more aware of what's taking place, especially now that you see more. I don't want to say law enforcement, but more of the enforcement going into these urban cities and causing the reaction from a lot of the citizens within that community. But here locally, I mean, we've seen protests here as well, right? We've never shy away from it. We have it here. I think it's a peaceful way of expressing your freedom of speech. And people certainly have that right. And not too long ago, maybe a year or 2 ago, we had one off of Yosemite and Gateway. And that was the Palestinian protest, right? Or the Gaza deal that was taking place, and that was brought also to the city council. Some of us had to hear, provide some comments. When you travel down to Fresno, it seems like on Blackstone and Needs, that seems to be the location, right, where people are always protesting, whether it be the No Kings Day or it be the Gaza or what have you. You start seeing these more and more evident here within our local communities.
Yeah.
But what's causing a lot of this unrest? Is it just especially for students and more so for the young people?
Yeah.
What do you think is going on in our society today?
That's the hard part. I mean, if I was to, this one, my concern is obviously where we're broadcasting from. We're only talking about a block away, So if you look at what's going on across the country where they potentially can get ugly, we're kind of we're in the path of destruction, depending on which way they may go. And so when reaching out to kind of get a feel of, where is this at? Who's organizing it? This one's a little different because no one knows. The flyer was put out, the kids know about it, the schools know about it, but it's not organized, so they are potentially skating on, some delicate areas because this is not an organized protest, which, you get into the whole legalities. And this is the fun part about, peaceful protesting and stuff, that you have to ask permission, you have to get permits, you have to get all these things. You don't just get to go protest, but these are kids. And I don't think they're fully aware of that, So this is where, I want to think that these kids, they're being guided by whoever's putting this together for the right reasons, right? Like, you want to hope that if you were to pull all these kids and say, hey, why are you here? It's going to be for the right reasons. Because I don't know if you watch a lot of those protest videos where you see the commentators, they're like, why are you here? And the people are dumbfounded and they have dumb answers and they don't even know what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
They're kind of just there because the energy is there. So I really hope that's not going to be the case here. I hope it's going to be they're there for the cause, wherever they stand for it, and it's going to remain peaceful. But the concern is going to be, again, Town and Country, Schnorr and Howard there at 8:30, 9 o'clock, there's not a whole lot of cars. And if they get bored and they decide to step off that corner and start going somewhere, where's that going to go? And,
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and that's you're right. I mean, I think when you have, especially the student population for 3 high schools, I can see maybe these 2 high schools here making the walk out there, but Matilda's quite a ways out, But again, people drive nowadays, so that certainly will create some traffic issues. And I mean, when you have a gathering of that size, young students, hormones flying all over the place,
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
like you said, unless there's someone out there organizing in a way that says, hey, we're going to do it in a very organized fashion where, if you're going to have a sign or you're going to do something,
Yeah.
Do so. But when it's non-organized, and it can get chaotic because you have different kids with different ideas of what a protest is. And if you're not all in sync of what you're protesting for, then it gets pretty wild, right?
Yeah.
So that's the one thing that I do would ask that if any young folks are going to be out there, just be cautious of what activities you get involved in, because many of the times it's contagious. And like you said, it's energy, right? Why do people show up to these protests or to these organized events, right? And a lot of it is because it's this hype, this inner thing of wanting to do something, right? Sometimes when I hear about these protests, I said, man, it just feels like you feel alive again, right? Like the thrill of being there. I've attended a couple over the last 20 years, and frankly, they're all peaceful, right? But I mean, movements with the women's movement. I think my daughter and my wife had attended one, so I joined them and I walked it, and it felt good. The walk felt good. I mean, it was just very peaceful, very. There was no aggressive or nothing. They were just trying to send a message out.
Yeah.
Hey, we matter, or whatever the message was at that time,
Yeah.
right? And I thought it was pretty powerful because they had obviously a speaker there, Dolores Huerta, which I thought was a very, it was a good outcome of people that came to support it. But I've also seen protests, and we've seen them on videos where they can rupture pretty quick and they can turn violent. And I don't think we've seen this even with the George Floyd movement that took place. I think we had a small gathering of people that wanted to be peaceful protest. And here in Madera, it was well received. I think our not only our city officials, but our police department was, they made sure that everybody was safe.
Correct, yeah.
And again, expressing the rage or the anger or what have you, whatever emotions that you were going through, yes, you have a right to protest and a right to your freedom of speech. I think for us here locally, we want to make sure that it doesn't get out of hand. Right?
Yeah, and that's, the few that I've been involved in. We do the Walk for Life, which happens in San Francisco, and I remember attending those, and it was always about the warning about the counter protesters. That don't get involved. Don't say anything back to them, because there's obviously the kids maybe the you know, they may start out with the right mindset, but you get a handful of people across the street, you know, protesting against them and yelling slurs and saying things and firing them up. I think that's also where you might have some of those issues. Now, again, being 8:30, 9 o'clock, I think most people are at work, but it doesn't take, you know, too many bad apples to get in the mix to be across the street and, you know, saying, hey, they support the other side, and that could fuel stuff as well, you know.
Yeah. And I got to say, as parents, or at least as a parent, I get protests every day, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, it's not fair, right?
Where's my voice?
Where's my voice, right? And frankly, you know, I think when I see it that way, you know, I start thinking, well, the youth have this energy right now, and this movement of energy that they really want to put out there. They want to express it.
Yeah.
And sometimes how you articulate that, or how that comes across, whether it's the behavior or the words that you say, you know, I'm not saying they're collective,
Yeah.
but when you have such a mass gathering, is everyone in sync to understand that, hey, we're all going to be talking about the same message, or
Yeah.
is there different messages going around, right? The fact that you want to be part of something, I mean, I get that. That's where the energy really, this snowball of energy keeps on going, because people want to be part of that hype. But once you get there, I mean, there's energy going
Yeah.
back and forth, but what now, right? And I think you know, just some of the things that are happening in our society. You know, you look at, like, in politics, right? And we look at our Senate, we look at our Congress people, and you're starting to see a small increase of younger people getting into politics, right? Wanting to voice out their opinion. And it seems like there's always a clash with the older statesmen or stateswomen that have been there for many, many years, right? That this is the way government is ran, and these are the traditional ideas of how we do things. But it seems like that's what drives people to say, hey, man, how is it that a 90-year-old, and I'm not saying there's age differences here, but such a person that has been in politics, maybe in the Senate and or Congress for life, maybe there isn't any term limits, right? Why continuous over and over and over? And I think that doesn't settle well with a lot of people, right? I mean, I think even here locally, we don't have any particular term limits, but I think that wouldn't be a bad idea, right? If we had term limits, I think people would say, well, then you'd have a different turnover, a fresher turnover to see what's going on. But the argument would be, well, consistency. We want to try to keep that continuity of making sure that, you know, government runs a certain way.
Yeah.
We don't steer away from certain things, and all of a sudden, let's experiment and see what happens, right? But
Well, and I think that's, I mean, without going into my poli-sci classes and stuff, I mean, a lot of that, what you're talking about is, you know, you're supposed to believe in the system, which is, if I'm doing bad as in my position, then the next person who comes up, you know, points those things out, and the vote decides on what the vote is. You know what I mean? Now I know I'm not saying that we should have a president that gets to live there forever, and then we get back to the idea of like having a king to some degree, because I know that's the other term is they'll throw around is, you know, the presidents are supposed to get their 2 terms and that's it, so that we don't have this, you know, like some of these countries just like perpetual rulership, or, you know, generational rulership, you know, forever. But I think at the local level, because it takes so long sometimes to get stuff done, I think that's always the argument is like, okay, well, if it's a, you know, 2-term and by the time I get my foot in the door, I'm already like having a campaign because I get the next one's coming up, and you know, and then now I'm thinking like, can I even get done what I need to get done in my 2 terms, you know? So, so I know that can always be, that's one argument of why having no term limits at certain positions kind of makes sense. It gives
Yes.
it gives a chance, you know, because
Yeah,
maybe it's a long-term project. Maybe it takes you 5-6 years to get something changed, you know?
I can tell you that for those of you that are viewing here locally, we have a project that we've been trying to get underway for the longest time there at Town and Country.
Yeah.
And it's almost complete, but that's the pavement of the trails there.
Yeah.
And going on my 3rd term, it's taken 2 terms to try to get that going, right?
Yeah.
Because the lack of funding, again, the census tract that it lies on, you know, do we have the funding to do it? So luckily over the last couple of years, both our Assemblywoman Soria and our State Senator Caballero were able to bring in some grant funding, and that's taking place now. So we're almost completed with that. So if you haven't gone to Town and Country, take a walk. Appreciate the new trail that's out there. It's almost completed, and then we have some gym equipment out there that you can utilize to stop in these stations and take advantage of it. But again, to your point, Rohi, I think. A lot, like you said, a lot of the times these things can't be accomplished over a term or 2 terms. But essentially, I think when you're there beyond a certain point, I think, and it's the same status quo, nothing really changes. I think this is what creates that that unrest, and especially in the younger generation, because they see the patterns that certainly don't change, and they want to make a change in some capacity, right? Whether it's social media, group chats, decentralized networks, you start seeing the rise of these. Cryptocurrencies, these meme coins and what have you. And a lot of that is that young blood bringing in some type of technological advancement to how we operate, how we decentralize. Hey, let's think of a different way outside of what we've been accustomed to for the last, who knows, almost 100 years, meaning in currency-wise, right?
But you know, when I heard about this, the first thing that comes to mind, and it just has not just with Madera, but you know, the only thing I don't hear with all the protest is the thing that they're not asking for, which is reform. You know, and it's a failure on both sides, because the immigration issue it's the issue at hand is not that. I think it's not so much that we want to get rid of enforcement, because I think we got to be very cautious and look at countries that have removed their borders to some degree and allowed anybody to enter. But I think it's an understanding that we want to accept that those that are here and make them, you know, full citizens. And that process, I mean, I talked to a lot of people that have tried to go through that process, and they're telling me, oh, like 10, 15 years sometimes, you know, wanting and doing everything right and getting the attorneys and whatever that process is to becoming recognized as a full citizen. Now, I don't know where everybody lies that's getting wrapped up in all this. You know, I mean, I don't know where they are in that process or what their goals are. Are they wanting to become citizens? Are they just wanting to be here? Are they just wanting to work? But I think both sides have to understand there is a correct way. That way may be broken, but what we're not hearing is the energy doesn't need to be necessarily focused on some of the enforcement, yes, but it should be boisterous to say we want this fixed. We need this process fixed, right? And I think that's the part that's not getting spoken. Nobody has a sign that says, you know, reform. There's not a single protest sign saying we want immigration reform or fix this immigration issue. It's just stop the police. It's back to where we were with like the Seattle thing, like defund the police and let's kill this. Really, you want no police? That doesn't make any sense, you know?
Yeah, no, and to a certain extent, you know, I agree. I think the fact that they're out there is because of how, I think...
The brutality.
The brutality, right? I think that certainly spells out, hey, this is not acceptable.
Correct.
I mean, they're not telling you in a sign reform, but they're telling you this isn't the right way of doing things either, right? And I think over the past... terms with presidents, they've done this. Even with Obama, people were saying, well, Obama had more people deported. Yeah, well, of course, but they did it in a very, like the guy said, a covert, strategic way, right? They were isolating
That's
certain
just code
folks.
for they covered it up.
Well, covered it up, but they weren't creating this mass hysteria around, you know, especially urban areas, right? I mean, think about it. I mean, here's the thing.
But I'll argue with that, though. And I'll argue that. So if you look at outside of immigration, the same federal agents, you know, again, coming from the gun side, when ATF kicks in your door, they kick in your door. You know what I mean? They don't send you a letter and say, hey, Jose, we need to talk about the issue that you got going on. They kick in your door. They shoot your dog. I mean, that's the joke, right? They do these violent acts on a regular basis. This is just being captured by the news.
Yeah, so. No, of course. But I think when people... have that unrest is because they see how it's being done. It's not no longer going to your door, because these are done in very public, high populated arenas where now it's not necessarily, Rohi, it's not a let me go knock at your door.
Yeah.
To some extent is, hey, you don't seem to fit a picture of what American citizens look like, right? And I may be going outside of
Sure.
that line, but I'm just trying to express what some of these folks are seeing. That hey, it's no longer you are the criminal that is here with that you're here undocumented. You're here, and you look like someone that potentially fits the criteria of what we're looking for. And that, I think, becomes the issue of so much unrest, because now it's a profiling deal, right? And a lot of this that's going on, like you said, the reform, well, let's talk about that, because I think it's important for us to understand the process of the correct way, because I hear that a lot from people. Well, you got to do it the legal way. Well, what is the legal way? And the legal way, of course, would be, well, you have to come through what? Ellis Island, you have to go through a border, you have to apply for a visa. And you can still get these visas if you're a student, or if you have some of these classified visas, people can still get in temporarily. Okay, but a lot of the people that are being targeted are not those people that are here also that with expired visas. It's become more of a profiled minority, sometimes colored folks. And I think this is where you start seeing the rise of this protest. Now, let's go back to the legalities. How do you do this legally? Because I've heard this from different people. Do it the legal way. Well, the legal way requires that the employer petition to get these folks out here, which costs a huge amount of money for them, because then they have to house them. And then aside, so all that transportation, all that petitions and everything that there is a huge cost of money. Who's going to bear that cost? The folks that are trying to get that legal status don't have a dime to their name. So then what happens? Employers still hire these folks. So you can't just say do it the legal way. There's a demand for work. Somebody needs to supplement that work. Who's doing it?
No, but I mean,
And when you're talking about solutions, no, it's fine, because look, you can have that temporary visa, that old Bracero way that you want to bring back. That's fine. But where is that happening today? Nobody's talking about it, like you said.
But and I'll tell you where that's happening, because I see them. They come in. You know, the people that are a good portion of the people coming from India, for instance, are coming on work visas. They don't have permanent status. They don't have anything. I mean, they're getting here, and a good portion of them have those cards. So they're not just here illegally, and obviously that they're having to come through different channels. So I'm sure the requirement for them to have that visa or whatever is there to fly here and whatnot. But they have work visas. They have the documentation.
They're not necessarily flying through there. A lot of them come through different ports, especially through Mexico.
But they still have a visa.
Yeah,
I
understand.
they show me their work visa.
So visas can be provided, Rohi, on a temporary work status. You saw DACA. You see people from El Salvador. These people have been, and I tell you because you see them, but I also work with them when I do not only their tax returns, but sometimes when I do their lending, is that they've been on a temporary status for decades, right? So they go through the process as well, but they're in a temporary status. They get their visas. DACA had their visas because they see the reform behind that. They said, well, let's give them a social so that they can participate and access work, legal work, right? So it's not as easy as one would say, because if you look at how difficult it is, especially for these folks, that they're demanded to come to work. It's not like I'm just coming out here. Why is there a demand for it? If you really wanted to stop that, you would start with the employment. You would do a verify system. That's already in place, but nobody utilizes it correctly. Because if they did, then you would know if that person is truly a legal resident and or citizen that can work in the U.S.
But I mean, again, going back to my point, though, is everything you stated, it can be an agreement. It's broken. It's expensive.
Yes.
It's all this.
Yes.
But not a single person in politics or in their signs is saying we want to change. You know what I mean? They may be saying it in some background or some really low-level noise, but that should be the forefront, is to say, going to all these, whoever, I don't care what party you're on, neither party has taken up and said, like, you just identified it. Here's the problem. It's expensive. It's hard to do. Employers and all, okay. And,
But-
like, where are we fixing it? And this has been like, how long?
But they have. See, okay. So,
But you've not gotten to
Okay.
the point to saying
Yes.
it's a perfect system
Yes.
where, where we're at.
It's because the narrative today, Rohi, is that they don't want to fix it. They don't want to fix it. They haven't want to fix it. It's been around, kicked around. The can's been kicked down the road many, many times. And people protest on that because they haven't been able to fix this reform, right? And you have it on both aisles.
Mm-hmm.
There is bills that are taking place or acts that people want to get together, whether it's the DREAM Act and what they have going with some of the local congressmen here that are, and again, this is bipartisan, trying to come together to find a way, a solution to be able to help this situation of reform. And if you ask anyone that's migrated here, obviously there is no other country like America for dream building, for making wealth and all that. And I think given that circumstance, people want to come here to do that as well. And and I hear it all the time, there's got to be a right and legal way of doing it. But if the opportunities are there and people are demanding that type of work, then I still feel that you can do that within our system that we have today. Because if you don't employ people, then if you don't employ people, and a lot of these works are your low paying jobs where people come in, they migrate, and they try to assimilate. It doesn't take one, it takes 2 to 3 generations. And you can go back and just go back to anybody's family history. And it takes a while because they had to come through a certain, a similar situation when they migrated. And if you go back 3 to 5 generations. So I get the reform part of it. I just don't know if the current system that we have today wants to do anything about it. And hence why you're going to see more and more of this civil unrest until something balances.
But that's quietly saying it's because it's Trump, because it's a Republican,
No,
because it's this.
no.
But
It's happened.
everybody's had their chance at being in charge,
yes,
and it
yes,
doesn't really get
yes,
anywhere. So.
Yes, no, you're absolutely right. And in many different terms, you've seen presidents from Bill Clinton to George Bush to Obama. You've seen all of them. They all kick it down the road. Nobody wants to take on that and say, I'm going to champion this real quick. Instead, there's measures. You take aggressive measures or you take these very subtle measures. And what we see today, I think, is more of a abrasive measure that I think doesn't sit well with a lot of the folks. And I'm not sure if the youth would speak on this, but I'm just saying this is why you're seeing a lot of the uprising in the protesting.
Yeah, again, and that's my fear is that it's not gonna. I mean, you want to hear them and answer them so that they feel heard. And if you, in this case, I would say you're not being heard. They're not going to be addressed, and therefore it may get worse. Or maybe they'll get distracted by something else. I mean, that seems to be some of the cases, unfortunately. Like, there was never really a true resolution to the Gaza, issue. It just, we started talking about something else.
Yeah, and the same thing.
It's still going on, but it just, people get tired of it, it dies off, and it doesn't make the headlines, and forget.
Yeah, and you and I just spent about 15 minutes talking about specifically immigration, but that's not the only thing why people, well, within that immigration or that protest that we're seeing, you did see people get killed.
Yeah.
And you saw it with videos, right? And people may have spun that narrative however they wanted to try to get a message across. But certainly in all the social media outlets, you saw mainly law enforcement, or in this case, the immigration officers, being part of the shooting that took place. And again, self-defense or not, we're not here to argue that. It's just what's being shown out there, how people are starting to see, is it gun violence? Is it climate change? Is it healthcare? I mean, we hear about it, right? Not too long ago, a couple of years back, you had that CEO that was shot from United Healthcare, right? You had, Charlie Kirk, again, there is there are so many different things in our society today, and it's not just immigration. There's different things that people are just saying, hey, what's going on? What are we going to argue about today? And when they find that, I don't know what this thing is going to, what the whole theme is behind the protest here at our local schools, but I'm assuming that there's some type of organized theme behind it that we're not aware of, right?
Yeah.
Have you heard of any?
No, I mean, and that's my concern for this event particularly, because usually when you have something organized, somebody's going to talk, somebody's going to take charge, and until that person is identified, for instance, in this case, you're going to have some random take charge and some random tell the kids what to do, and who knows where it could go. It could turn into something peaceful, or it could turn into something much more. And that's really just kind of if you're a parent to one of these kids, I mean, that would be one of maybe the things to just say is, find out who's running it, find out what the plan is, and make sure that's what you want to be a part of, and understanding why you're there, not just to be there, not just be standing around, and definitely not to be there to cause trouble, because it could be a life-changing event if something goes wrong. So
Yeah, and again, the theme behind what they're protesting, Rohini, I think more importantly, like, what is it that they're trying to like signal out? What's the message, right? Like, is it mainly, look, we can gather because we're young, we can bring this ball of energy to this location to show that we protest. But I think that if it was organized and you're showing, well, we're going to protest against public schools, or we're organizing because of climate change, or whatever the case may be, then I think you'd have a lot more support. You'd probably have a lot more adults coming in and saying, you know what, yeah, I believe in that cause as well. I believe that our youth should have that voice, should be able to express themselves and what have you, peacefully.
Yeah.
Right? And be supportive of that. I think our police department would want to know, hey, how do we organize so that we're not causing any chaos within our community, right? Yeah. But to your point, I don't think there's any leaks out there of what this is or who organized it. We just know that it's out there on social media, right?
Yeah.
Is that
that's kind of where it's at? Yeah. So.
But anyhow, so what that means for America's future, I think we'll move on and kind of see how that's gonna, how is this unrest, or how is this surge in protesting, how does that affect our elections, our university policies, public opinion, and the national debates? Because I want to say that these debates have been ongoing for many, many years, but does it really have an impact in the way elections take place moving forward, right? Do the youth get involved more? Have they? And when we see the turnouts, do we see that rise in that same protest? Do you see it in the elections?
I mean, again, it's about energy. It's about where they want to direct it. And there's only, unless the number of protesters grow, you're going to have the same people again getting divided to say, again, right now, if I'm protesting here on this thing, and there's an election thing next week, are we going to go protest that? Are we going to continue this? And I think you start seeing a lot of that that energy divide, and that's always been, I guess, I mean, my focus is, and I think we spoke about it before, is it's if the unification keeps happening, where, like you're saying, not just 1 in 5, 4 out of 5 people are protesting now, and they come together for a general message. That's where you might see some bigger changing. But when it's 1 out of 5, this week, Jose, you're protesting ICE. Next week, it's going to be for the voting, and then you're going to go for the university, and it just becomes like, not, like, is that are you just protesting because you just enjoy it, like you said, or are you really like trying to get something done? Are these kids going to be 5 years from now championing and running for elections? Are they going to be, during voting, are they going to propose some kind of changes that can happen? Or are they just, hey, this is the hot thing today, I probably won't ever do it again,
Yeah, and I think, given like what the outcome is of that protest, right? Are you trying to get a social media post out? Are you trying to let people, hey, look what we're doing this week?
Yeah.
Or are you really trying to hurt a movement, or an economic, for example, a political movement that hurts economically certain corporations that you may be protesting, right? We saw that with
boycotts and all that.
Boycotts of, like, when supporters of Trump came up, you had the Targets, you had the certain stores, right? And they listed all these here. Well, if you truly wanted to, you would have seen the impacts on it now. But again, I think people believe that a protest is a one-day event, and I think a protest could be a lifetime event. There's people out there that have protested for many, many years, and not wanting to go maybe with a fossil fuel car, right?
Yeah.
That want to say, I want to do clean energy, even though they're one of very few people that are doing these initiatives. the rest of the world is saying, I don't care. Let's just go ahead and fill up and
Yeah.
what have you.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? There's a lot of unrest. You know, one of the things that I recently saw, especially with some local politicians here in the state, was the gas tax, right? And we've talked about this in our transportation commission of how are you going to replace the gas tax, right? What are you going to do to replace that? And how are you going to replace it, right? And I think this is stirring up some conversation because you're starting to see folks saying, well, you already pay a pretty big price at the pump. Now you want to add another road user or gas per mile or however, and that creates a privacy issue. So I know this will be a topic that'll be coming. I don't know how it impacts youth, but it's certainly a topic of conversation in the future. And I think right now the youth are more concerned about what they're learning, right? Are we learning the equalities? Are we learning that climate change? What are we learning in school that's teaching us to want to rebel and or protest?
Yeah. Yeah, and again, it's at their age, it's what's really affecting them as an individual, you know. Obviously for some of them, that could be friends that have been affected or family that have been removed by, you know, some of these, the ICE agents, or maybe it's just because they're concerned for them, you know, and that's kind of, I think, also going to help direct where or how strong the energy is, right? If you're just there because, yeah, you know, I believe in the movement, but that's one thing. But if you're like, hey, you know, my cousin, you know, this happened and this, you know, it's affecting our family and I'm emotionally now just torn with that, that's going to be a lot more energy and that's going to be a lot more lasting, you know. So like you said, the gas tax, you know, most of them probably don't drive and they're not going to pay that tax directly. So they're not going to have that feel. I think a lot of the energy that's coming from that already from now is people that are already paying at the pump because they don't have an electric car. And now they're saying it's going to be double tax. It's not the tax, it's the double taxation of I'm already paying at the pump and then you're going to tax me based on my road miles as well. So, you know, but again, like I've always told people is, at what point are we going to see the next protest on the corner of, you know, Howard and Schnorr here for the road tax? You're not. That I don't know that energy ever evolves to just say we're going to protest everything we're upset about. Most people are just going to hit the internet, you know, put a meme, put a few things that, oh, I don't like this, and then.
Yeah, and like I said, I think that's why the episode was the rise of youth, right? And I think when you talk about protest, the majority of people that you see in these protests, are they the younger crowd? Are they the older crowd? Like, would you have a reason to want to protest anything, Rohi? Would you have a reason to want to be outside holding a sign at the age and the stage of where you're at in your life?
No, because the only thing I think about, and I know this is, we look at a lot of them and we go like, you know, should you be working? I mean, like, and obviously that's where some of the negative side comes about because you hear about these are paid protesters and some of this stuff, and you know it's a little bit more organized, you know, because you have to understand, like at the end of the day, if I believe in a movement, but I need a really good showing of people, and I'm like, hey Jose, you want to come protest? You're like, man, I got work, like, you know, can you do it on a Saturday? You know, no, it has to be, you know, Tuesday at 9:00. Well, then you're going to have to actually finance it. You're going to have to get something a little bit more organized, or else it's going to be you standing on that corner by yourself with that sign, right?
Yeah.
So I think being that, you know, with the youth, they don't have work that they're missing. I'm sure they're more than happy to miss a day of school. It's a lot easier for them to jump ship, and that might be where, again, like you're saying, the youth organized protest may become more of a thing because it's you know, the only limitations they have to get mom and dad approval, you know.
And sometimes no approval. I think on their own, I
Yeah.
think they see that this is the way I can rebel from the system, from the school, from my parents. I'm going to go out there, you know. But again, I think for us, you know, as a reminder, as parents, you know, we just say, hey, make sure you talk to your kids. Make sure that, you know, if in fact that is something that they're going to do, make sure you have that conversation with them. Just, you know, keep it peaceful. You know, try not to break any laws, right? That's the biggest one. You know, do it peacefully. I think the message will get through. But more importantly, you know, I wouldn't take their freedom of speech and wanting to protest. I think that if you're doing it, I think to Rohi's point is find a common cause. Make it make it impactful to what the cause is, right? If you're really trying to change something, then yeah, you definitely need organization. I don't think any protest out there is out there regardless. So when you say organizers, yeah, there's got to be organizers. And I'll remind that back when and I like some history, right? But the Bolshevik Revolution with Lenin, right? The idea of him wanting the workers to start that was the initial stages of them wanting to revolt against the current Tsar. But that wasn't happening. It wasn't happening. They were pamphlets were being passed out. People were, hey, read this. No different than social media. Here you go. Read. Look. Get an impact. Get fired up. But it wasn't happening.
Yeah.
So then, yes, they started staging the people that were part of the organization leading it. That's how these rebellions or revolutions start. It's not necessarily by the people. It's you need leaders to start and organize, and also get them involved. And it's not just like a very spontaneous thing that, hey, we're all going to walk out.
Yeah.
No, there is. There's got to be leadership in that organization. There's got to be someone organizing and leading people to the spot. I doubt it that many people, by reading a social media post, will want to participate without having more information of what are we doing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Where's it going?
Where is it going? Correct. So anyhow, we're now going on 41 minutes, Roy. Any closing thoughts for this episode? And again, this is our rise of youth protest, but
No, I would just say, I mean, to the youth out there, just it's not about, if this movement doesn't get what you think it should, it's not about giving up. It's understanding that you're doing it for a reason and a purpose. And, I hope that, I'm sure there's a lot of things that you have concerns about. There are the right ways and the wrong ways to do this. And a peaceful protest is definitely a good start in the right direction. But if they're there again truly for that movement, look at other things they can do to also help move that goalpost forward. So
yeah, and well, I mean, at least in my opinion, I'll close with this: that it's not that the young people are disengaged; they're just redefining how our government, right? They're stepping into leadership roles. They're starting to demand accountability, and it's not a disorder. It's just a signal of a generation that doesn't want to be silent anymore, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be them 30 years from now, maybe holding positions of government and civic involvement, right? And they're going to see maybe their generation or their kids, their offspring, wanting to take similar actions. And it's funny because when we go back to when we were young, really, we were full of spirit and energy, wanting to be involved in something. At that time, maybe we didn't know what it was. We just wanted to be part of that energy. So anyhow, in closing, if you are going to participate, especially here in Madera, do it peacefully, and just make sure that you abide by all the laws and follow your conscience to do well, right? I mean, I think it's your right, and you should continue to protest peacefully. With that, we'll go ahead and sign off. Thank you again for watching, and we'll see you next week. All right.